Good evening, everyone. This is Barrett Christian Giels coming to you for take two of my newest episode. Yes, you guessed it, I did not have the volume set all the way up on my MacBook, so I'm recording it a second time, another 20 minutes of time. Woohoo! As you can guess, I am still learning how to adjust all the appropriate settings when I make recordings for my YouTube channel. So, today's episode is a continuation of my Top Influencers series. In my last episode that featured Top Influencer number 9, I spoke of John Iadarola, who is known for his work on the Damage Report. I consider John to be a great voice in the media, someone that we desperately need these days, at a time when so much information is contested, misunderstood, misconstrued, and the like. So today I'm going to shift gears fairly significantly to my next top influencer. This gentleman is not someone who is a media personality per se, though he is known for some of his writing, specifically his book, Coming Out Spiritually. That is none other than wonderful breathwork master practitioner Christian de la Huerta, who I met a number of years ago when I lived in the beautiful city of San Francisco, California. So today in this episode, I'm going to be speaking a bit about Christian and about the circumstances in which I met him and the great gift that he offers to the world. So, a number of years ago, when I was a younger adult man, I decided to give myself the great pleasure of living in the San Francisco Bay Area. I moved there at the age of 25, and I moved there because I wanted to have an experience, something akin to Mary Ann Singleton from the lovely books, The Tales of the City series by the renowned author, Mr. Armistead. Open. And I hope I'm saying the last name right. I'm always a little bit concerned when the last name sounds slightly French because I don't have much French skills other than to say oui oui, which probably sounds mocking to some French people. So, I moved to San Francisco because I wanted to live in the gayest city in the world, the city that has the reputation for being a welcoming place for the LGBTQ A, B, C, D, E, F, G, X, Y, Z community. And yes, I am being a little flippant there, but that is because in the time that I have been alive, the LGBT community has grown to identify and include other groups of people that when I was a younger gay man, I did not even hear some of the terms. So we are a continuously evolving community of people within the human race that is a continually evolving species. So everything changes. That's not a shock. So I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area for a number of years. I had the great pleasure, as many San Franciscans do, to partake of its many wonderful cultural, historic, social attractions. And shortly after I moved to the area, when I began to really comprehend just how much diversity there was in the Bay Area compared to where I had grown up in Texas, I created something of a joke that I would share with my friends as well as those who lived out of state who had never been to the Bay Area, which was there was so much diversity in the San Francisco Bay Area that you could conceivably expect that there would be a support group for most any collection of identities that a person might hold. And so I would joke around and I would say, San Francisco Bay Area is the kind of place where they would have a deaf, lesbian, vegetarian social support group. There was so much variety, so many fascinating things to see and do, such variety of cultural backgrounds and the people of the San Francisco Bay Area that it was not unrealistic to expect to see anything, to meet any kind of person with any kind of background who had any kind of interest. So my joke I specifically made up for whatever reason was they would have a deaf, lesbian, vegetarian social group there. There was that kind of diversity. Now, I am not deaf, I am not a lesbian, and I've only experimented some, usually unsuccessfully, with vegetarianism, but I can appreciate if people wanted to make such a group like that, right? So I got to experience the amazing diversity of the Bay Area. And one of the other great things about the Bay Area that is kind of a no-brainer, of course you would expect that with the diversity, is that there's amazing experiences to be had. Amazing cultural experiences, amazing learning experiences. San Francisco, California is one of the hotbeds for people who want to develop themselves in any number of ways, or at least it was when I lived there. Now, what I understand from the time that has passed is that, sadly, like some other American cities, it has become cost prohibitive for more and more Americans to live there. That, sadly, is not a surprising trend, considering how many parts of this country have become cost prohibitive for more and more Americans. I will not digress on that subject. There's plenty that I could talk about there. It's a whole other episode, and I probably will get into that at a different episode. Suffice to say, at the time I lived there, San Francisco was an amazing place. It's like an amusement park for the soul. It's like a place you go when you want to try anything and have fun and meet amazing people. And one of the most amazing people that I met in the time that I lived in San Francisco in the Bay Area was Christian de la Huerta. Now, who is he, do you ask? He is, as I understand him, as I experienced him, as I remember him, he is an amazing breathwork practitioner. He is a man who has made it his life's work, in large part, to teach people about the power of mindfulness and the human breath, and how to, in a sense, develop a more mindful relationship with our breath, with our bodies, with our spirits, to live healthier, more enjoyable, and more productive lives. And the way that I came across Christian when I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area was really more pure chance than it was by choice. I had never heard of Christian when I moved there. I had never read any books by him when I first moved to San Francisco. So I had no idea when I moved to San Francisco that I would have the great fortune of meeting him. And among the things that I discovered when I met him was one of his wonderful books. It's called Coming Out Spiritually. And it was written, if I recall correctly, in 1999. So it's been around about 20 years now. And it was a number of years ago now when I read it, so I don't have the best, photographic memory of all the details of the book. But what I do remember the book that did stay with me, did stay in my heart, is that Christian uses the book in part to talk about the history and the significance of the LGBT community. Now, I don't mean that he wrote a compendium that's this thick that tells the whole history of the LGBT community all the way back to the time of Jesus or before the life of Jesus Christ. In no way is his book that thick. It's more about that thick. It's a very easy to read book, I found. So it is not a concise yet thorough compendium of all of LGBTQ, etc., history. It is a synopsis, a shorter version of history than what you could find in other books. And what he does is he does a great job of talking about some of the classic or typical roles that LGBTQ people have filled and lived out throughout history. LGBTQ people have been healers, they have been lawyers, they have been the people at the forefront of major social justice change movements. Think of people like Harvey Milk. They have been doctors. One of the doctors, now I don't want to make a mistake here and actually speculate. I am not aware of this individual's sexual orientation, but another great doctor that has been very much of a contribution to the LGBT community is Dr. Anthony Fauci, who is in the news again ever since the COVID-19 pandemic began because of his stature and his long history of working with the CDC. Dr. Fauci was one of the seminal figures almost 40 years ago when the AIDS epidemic started. So he has much history working in his profession and has thus the chops to be able to speak in a very experienced, seasoned way about what he is an expert in. So anyway, LGBT people, LGBTQ, etc. I don't even know all the letters now if there's new ones. I don't like Google that and try to find out a status update. I know there's a lot of other terminology in there like queer questioning, intersex, non-binary, etc., etc. When I say LGBTQ, consider that to mean that I am saying the umbrella of all the terminology that fits all of us of the non-gender, non-sexual orientation conforming community. So, I had the great pleasure of meeting Christian just through the circles that I spent time in while I lived in the Bay Area. And I was immediately very impressed with him because of his astute commitment to the artwork, the art form that was his life's work, that is his life's work. And he had a calmness about him that I think is a natural, it's like a natural gravitational force. You meet Christian and he is so, I don't want to say mellow because mellow isn't quite the right word, but he is so, his presence is just, it's a calming kind of energy that he carries about him. And yes, he is a human like the rest of us, so yes, I know that he feels the emotions that all humans do, but he has a very lovely demeanor about him that for those who are ready, I believe can find him to be a very empowering, energizing, fascinating, loving figure to have in your life. And so when I think about Christian, when I bring forth the memories that I have of him, of the work that he's done in all the years that he's done his work, I think of him as a very loving person. He's a very intelligent person. He's a very kind person. And he's a very dedicated person. And so if you're watching this video and you've just learned about Christian and you're curious to get references on him or learn more about him, consider this video today on my channel as a testimonial to his character, to what a wonderful man he is, and to the quality of the integrity that he brings to his work. So I met him when I had, not long after I had moved to San Francisco, I met him. And like I said, I was immediately very drawn to what he offered to the world. And also, I honestly found him very attractive as a man. He's a beautiful person in that sense. And so I had the pleasure of participating in some of the trainings and workshops that he offers focused on the human breath. And between those experiences and the trainings that I experienced with Chester Maynard of the Body Electric School, whom I profiled in a past Top Influencers episode, between these two men and still other trainings that I did with Sue Irwin and the Life Force Education Corporation trainings, which were the great imaginative outcome of the work of Matt Garrigan, between these amazing people that I met, I came to a new and greatly deepened appreciation of the power of the human breath and what it is in our lives. It is truly the life force within us. When we are born, one of the very first things that doctors do when a mother has given birth is they listen for that telltale cry, right? They listen for when that baby takes its first breath outside of its mother, when it cries. And the very quality of that cry tells the doctors and the nurses something about that status of that baby in that very first moment. Does it have strong lungs? Is it alive? Is it healthy? Does it have fluid in its lungs? You can understand so much about not just how a person breathes, but how they sound when they breathe, right? You can learn so much about a person just sitting with them and being present to their breath as you breathe. And that's what Christian, in a sense, invites us to do. He is a wizard in inviting people to breathe and to slow down enough to breathe and to relax and to remember the power of the human breath. It is extraordinarily powerful. It is our life force. It is the first thing that we ideally take notice of when we wake up in the morning, that first deep breath of the day, when we are awakening to a brand new day and contemplating, pondering, what is my life going to be about today? Who am I going to meet? Who am I going to be in the world? What do I want to be in the world? And it's one of the very last things to reflect upon at night when we go to bed. How was my day? What did I accomplish? Did I breathe well? So much of our lives, so much of the quality of our lives is deeply related to how we breathe through the course of any given day. It's as simple as that. The breath is a profound teacher of who we are, and we can use the breath to teach ourselves more about who we can be when we open ourselves up to exploring this seemingly incredibly mundane thing that we do every day that if we didn't do, we would not exist. So on that note, I'm going to pause and take a deep breath. So as humans, as you see on my shirt here, I have properly labeled myself for the day. As humans, we are breathing throughout each and every day of our lives. Some of us, if we become very sick, like some people who are sadly very sick with the coronavirus now, ultimately have machines sometimes that do our breathing for us. Some of us are sometimes put on ventilators to help us to breathe. In the quality of our breathing, how we carry ourselves in the world, how we live, is very much reflected in how we breathe, right? Think about a few examples. What happens if you become really anxious and you feel threatened and you feel that fight or flight response activating that we all have within us, that's built into our very selves? One of the key indicators of heightened stress and a feeling of needing to leave a place, leave a situation, is your respiration, your breathing goes up. Your adrenaline system gets activated, your heart rate goes up, your breathing goes up, and you start taking breaths which have a different quality than how you breathe when you are at peace and in a place of stillness and relaxation. So how we're breathing tells us in each and every moment something about the world around us, right? We know who we are by how we breathe, and we know who we are by who we breathe close to, right? Where do we spend our time? I invite you, my viewers, to ponder that. Where do you spend your time in the course of a day? Where do you do your breathing? Do you live in a place with polluted air? Do you live in a place that's smoky or has contaminants in the air because, unfortunately, you live in a highly polluted area? Do you live in an industrialized area? Do you live in the country? Do you live in a place where the climate is so beautiful and balanced that the rain and moisture throughout the year keep your air nice and clean such that you have amazing air quality? So ponder those questions. Where you are and how you breathe are two extremely profound factors in the kind of quality of life that you can have. Where are you and how are you breathing in this moment? And that is, in a sense, what Christians' work, as I see it, is focused on. That quality of the relationship that we have with our breath. Because from that relationship with how we breathe comes so much of the rest of who we are and how we live in the world. How we breathe, how we take care of that vital life force, our breath. Do we give space to our breath in the course of a day? Do we take 5 minutes out at work during the workday to just calm down, disconnect from all exterior, external stimulation, and take a moment to just go inside of our own awareness, inside into our interior selves, our interior lives, and just breathe. Nothing more, but nothing less. Breathing mindfully, fully, and with joy. I'm going to introduce you, my viewers, to one activity that I custom designed for myself related to breathing, and then I'm going to close this episode. And I welcome you to watch future episodes, because another theme I'm going to eventually address on my YouTube channel is the issue of air pollution. It is a serious issue in many parts of the world, including even here in the United States of America. It is something that affects the quality of life of millions of people throughout the world every day. It is something not to be taken for granted. So in future episodes, I welcome you to tune in for that sort of content. What I'm going to leave you folks with tonight is an invitation to partake in an activity that I like to do that helps me to relax and calm myself, place myself in an experience of stillness, and enjoy the beauty of the present moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to describe the activity, and then I'm going to perform it, and then I'm going to say goodbye at the end. So in this activity, what I welcome you to do is to imagine that you could see into your body, and that you could see your lungs, and that somehow the contours of your lungs were illuminated, almost as if they had like a surface layer around the lungs that had just a glow about them. So imagine maybe like a glowing light. You could even visualize like there's a light bulb inside each of your lungs, and the light emanating from the light bulbs is causing your lungs to glow, and you see that glow from the outside. So imagine you can see your lungs in your body, but you don't see anything else. So you focus specifically on the contours of your lungs, and you actually see kind of the outline, like the shape of them inside your chest. And then what I'm going to ask you to do is to imagine that when you're breathing in, the air that you're breathing in has a vibrant, illuminated color to it. Now you choose whatever color you like, but what I'm going to tell you for me is that what I do is I use a nice, beautiful, light blue color, like a neon powder blue color. And what I do is I imagine that as I'm taking a breath in through my nostrils, I visualize the light, this air going into my nostrils in that breath. I visualize it as a streamer of light blue, illuminated energy flowing into my lungs, through my nose, through my sinus cavity, down into my lungs, and then in my lungs, that material, that vivid blue-colored, energetic streamer basically starts to kind of fill my lungs from the bottom up. And so as I take my breath in and I continue to breathe and breathe and breathe more and more air in that inhalation, I imagine my lungs are filling with this beautiful blue energy. And another way you can think about it, if you're a big fan of ice cream like I am, is imagine, have you ever gone to like one of those ice cream places where it's like a frozen yogurt and ice cream place, and they have soft serve, and you get a cup of it, and you pull a handle, and it comes out in a streamer, and then it pools in the bowl like in a little swirl, and then you like let it, you do this maybe with the bowl underneath the spout, and it comes out in a nice, beautiful little kind of swirl pattern. Imagine that air going into your lungs is kind of like the ice cream coming out and spooling inside your bowl. So the air is coming into your lungs, and it's filling your lungs from the bottom up until you're basically full. And then as you exhale out that air, but now it has a different color. Whatever color it is that you want to visualize of the things that your body is getting rid of that you don't need before you take your next breath. So I'm just going to sit here now and do this in my mind with this visualization. And as I do this, I welcome you to follow along. And I'm going to punctuate the process by saying, when I start inhaling and exhaling. So I'll say inhale and then exhale to give you a chance to do this with your eyes closed if you want to do this along with me. And then after that, I'm going to wrap up. So we're going to do 5 breaths. And as soon as I begin the first inhale, I will say inhale. So I invite you to close your eyes. Attune yourself to the sound of my voice with no other distractions, and allow yourself just to hear my words. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Last one. Inhale. And exhaling. And so, having completed 5 breaths, I welcome you to tune into your body, into your heart, to your mind, and see what a difference just 5 breaths may have made for you. And I welcome you tonight when you go to bed to do this visualization. Perhaps replay this video, allow my voice to speak to you, and just follow along and visualize the air flowing into your lungs like a coil of lovely, light, buoyant, energizing energy, filling your lungs until it's at the top of your lungs, full to the brim, and then exhaling and releasing away. So, like I said earlier, I will do more episodes focused on air and air quality and breathing. The content of those will be somewhat organic, most likely, but I will do some research to make interesting episodes for all of you. So this has been my Top Influencer number 10 episode featuring the lovely, talented, beautiful soul, Christian de la Huerta. Christian, I love you, brother. I'm so glad that you crossed my path. I wish you health, peace, and joy. Signing off to all of you, my loyal viewers. I will see you again soon. From this human to you, be well.